America over English, real Ethiopian, me no British, go tell them. Grrrma wheat, etegremenen, Hamarina Kwanka Fidel teach my children. Them teach me English, Amharic is my preference. When my heights and my black my reverence. About touching no, I best my ye me nor. See me, ye can desmen gish teeth in ta. Before the best my ye in the one chin the ube me dear. Tihun ye let in jara chinin. Satin zare. Kai Mok is set, it's hot. Lion voice, one voice, and the lion voice. Time for the lion and the lioness voices to be heard. Log in and don't log off. Lion voice, Queasy, one. Lion voice, I hit.
The fittest of the fittest shall survive. My people, open your eyes. Wake up. Blessed love, this is Queen Omega representing for all lions and lionesses. With the lion's voice, we come to tell our story. Rastafari, live it. Hey, the lion's voice, Rastafari.
Greetings, this is Warrior King, and the time has come for the lions and the lioness to tell their own story. This is the lion's voice. Give thanks and praise for the wonderful blessing that's been poured on me. Give thanks and praise. Jah use I as an instrument to set the people free. Jah give her the powers to chant. Jah give her the powers to chant. Rastafari, the lion's voice.
Amina, the time has come for the lioness to tell our own story. No surrender, no retreat, we are Jaja soldier. Rougher than the streets, tougher than a boulder. Bigging up lamb's voice. Now put it, I Jollifer said that.
This is Sanky Davis. It's time for the lion to Ika. For unity is strength. Let us come together, my brethren and sisters, and forward to the motherland. Enough love. This is the lion's voice. Jah Rastafari.
Debbie, and I'm speaking to you straight from the Kwadwo Oppong-Wadie Studios, Assassin Radio. I'm a producer, and you know what time it is? It is time for the lion to tell a story. Tune in and don't go anywhere.
Beautiful.
Was it okay?
Kaboom! My name is King Legacy, the 7-star general, the host of Yard Settings on Assassin Radio, an award winner as well, and MC for Legacy Sound International. Ladies and gentlemen, kings and queens, tune into the lion voice, because time to tell our own story. So are you me, man? The lion coming on and boom and tell its own story. Africa and the world. Tune in, lion voice.
I'm Nana Farika. The time has come for the lioness to tell her story from her viewpoint and tell the world who Queen Omega is. This is the lion's voice.
Well, lion voice, tell them that's the people first choice. Lion voice, make the lioness them feel nice. Lion voice, with the lion cubs we sacrifice. Lion voice, got to show the people them the life. Lion voice.
Well, great is the Almighty, and greatly to be praised in the city of Haile Selassie I, the mountain of His holiness.
Yeah, from Cape to Cairo, from Timbuktu to the Nile, you know, the whole entire continent.
Beautiful for situation, the joy of the whole earth is Mount Zion, from Accra to Addis Ababa.
Yes, beautiful continent, better control, mama.
Very beautiful.
From Cape to Cairo, from Timbuktu to the Nile, I smile for mama.
I hear you call mama Africa. Been so long since I see mama. Father of Africa set the law. We gonna use solar energy, use sanitation to build the ecology. We utilizing green technology. We hailing Haile Selassie first without apology. And thanks of
The year is 1892, and the land of Ethiopia has been experiencing 4 years of terrible famine and drought. They call it the Kikuken, or the evil days. At least 1/3 of the human population and 90% of the cattle have died. The hyenas have feasted on so many carcasses that they have become overweight and barely able to move. Just when the people could take no more of the evil days, a woman named Wasiro Yeshimabe is giving birth in a place called Erjersa Gora. This is her 9th attempt to bring forth new life. Her previous 8 attempts only resulted in death. Will this child live? Thankfully, a healthy baby boy is born. His first cries are drowned by thunder and lightning flashes across the night sky. The heavens open up and torrential rain starts to fall. Ethiopia's drought is over, and the baby boy is given the name Tafari, meaning one to be feared or respected. Lich Tafari's father, Ras Makunin, is a very important man in 1892 Ethiopia. Although he is overjoyed at the birth of his newborn son, he cannot spend much time with him. Ras Makunin is the governor of Harar and must get back to the famous walled city to deal with its affairs. Furthermore, he is the foreign minister of Ethiopia, and having traveled to different places in Europe, he is very aware of the material and military advances they have made and the looming threats they pose to his country. Ras Makunin knows that the majority of Ethiopians have no idea what is coming, and that he has to work that much harder to secure the realm. Lich Tafari would grow up to become the legendary emperor, Haile Selassie I. To understand his journey, we must first understand the Ethiopia that he was inheriting, and what it was like when he was born in 1892. Get your copy of Kwesi Bansu's book, Haile Selassie I, Ethiopia, Volume 1, The Rise of the Priestly Warrior Kings, and increase your knowledge about the history, politics, and culture of Ethiopia in 1892, and how it connects to the rest of African and world history at the time. Haile Selassie I, Ethiopia, Volume 1 is available for purchase at www.bookmanexpress.pub. Please visit for more information.
Are you ready for an adventure? We're going to Kwanzaa Land,
where the 7 principles of Kwanzaa come to life.
Join Malcolm, Asa, and Ya as they learn Umoja, unity, Kujichagulia, self-determination, and more about our beautiful culture.
We can't wait for you to join us. Bring your family and friends. Let's go to Kwanzaa Land! See you in Kwanzaa Land!
Greetings in that divine name of His Imperial Majesty, Emperor Haile Selassie I. Glory and honor in the name of his chosen queen, Empress Wasiro Menen. My name is Kwesi Bansu, aka the Chasmach Kwesi, aka Ras Kwesi, aka the Reading Ras, aka the Pan-African Happy Man, creative industry attorney. I'm an author, I'm an artist, I'm an actionist, and right now I am the host of the Lion Talk Live. Welcome to Lion Talk Live, and welcome to the Lion Voice Network, where the lions are telling our own story. Tonight, very special guest, one of our Lion Pride and Patreon families, and also a professor. We're going to go deep into Ghana and what is our forecast from a Rastafari perspective. We are Rastafari independent, non-aligned media. And so as we survey the global chessboard, as we look at world events unfolding, we want to bring forward Rasses who have expertise in that area, who familiar with these areas, to come and share with the family so that we can be a highly educated population here on the Lion Voice Network. We deserve high-level Rastafari reasoning. And so big up all of the Lion Pride out there. We are still the fastest growing Rastafari platform on the planet. We didn't get 1,000 subs this strong, but we went 730 plus new members to the Lion Pride in the last 7 days. So big up. The word sound is getting out there. The movement, the information is spreading. We did our episode on that just passed on Ibrahim Traore. That is almost at 1.4 K, 1,400 people have watched that episode. So we are really growing. We're still a modest channel. I was reasoning with one of my brethren and he said, don't call your channel a small channel. I see the eye, I've been watching and I hear the eye talk about your channel is small. He said, don't say that again, Ras, because what the eye has accomplished in such a short time is very remarkable. I respect the brethren because he have a big platform. He's doing the thing on a major level. So I will no longer Lion Pride. This is for the Lion Pride. I will no longer refer to this platform as a small platform. We are an emerging platform. That is the new language that we are working with right now. But 15,000, we passed that mark. We're headed toward 20,000. I just secured the special presentation that we're going to launch at our 20,000 subscriber mark. Just like we dropped Muta Baruka at 10,000, we're gonna drop a next big interview at 20,000. So the ecosystem is developing, it's maturing, and we give thanks. Big up Lion Pride and Patreon. These are the economic engine that make this run. We have visions of a fully fledged Rastafari multimedia apparatus where we have staff, we're hiring Rastafari youth, we have correspondents in different regions, delivering high-level Rastafari content across the board, from animation to feature films, from a Rastafari worldview. Every community have it, so we deserve it ourselves. Pan-African point of view too, because we want to see the Battle of Ottawa cartoon. Who wants to see that? I do. So who's going to develop that cartoon if we don't do it? So the Lion Pride and Patreon are the ones who see the vision with 26 fire angels from around the world. We are trying to hit 100 by January 1st. So family, help us. Come on board, $5, $10, whatever you can, a cup of coffee. Invest in Rastafari independent, non-aligned media, so that we can rise this to where it should be and where it needs to be. We are going to build a production studio on the continent in Ghana. I've already invested in Ghana, have land there. The ones who watch the platform know that. So you're reasoning with a brethren who is actualizing his vision, and I'm carrying along the Lion Pride because I can't do it myself. That is one thing that you realize when you find your purpose and you commit to your purpose, that you cannot do it yourself. So we are here doing the work, awaiting the Almighty to send, the ones, the light-minded ones, the tribe, the collective, to help and to execute. And I big up the 26 Fire Angels. We just welcome Nick Nakus, the latest to join our Patreon. Big up yourself, Nick Nakus. He was also an Ubuntu Lion Pride. So now he's come on both sides. So we give thanks. Also big up my brethren, Bingy Sean, joined the Ubuntu Lion Pride, the Myers family, there in Ghana. You know what I mean? I have a whole heap of brethren that said that they're going to support the thing. So it's good to see them chatting, because I don't call people, you know, that are close to I to ask them to join. And, you know, I want the work to draw them in. So big up, because Bingy Sean always encourage I and show I that he's watching and he love the work. You know what I mean? He's now part of the Ubuntu Lion Pride, the whole Myers family, which is like I family. This is a family affair. That's why you see I come so confident, because we know that failure is not an option. Why? Because it's not just I family. We represent community. You know, we live this in a real life. So it's a joy to do the work and to see the growth. So big up all the Lion Pride on Patreon. It's looking sticky. I'm going to be honest, to get to 100 by January 1st, but we can do it. Each one does have a brethren and sister does sign up, and we can make this mark. If not, you know, I'm going to have to do an episode about failure, because failure is part of the part of the journey. We know failure. It's part of any path of development, and we want to train our young people not to fear failure. No, you know what I mean? Failure will stop you from acquiring your purpose. You know what I mean? If you fear that failure, a baby doesn't just be born and start running. The baby has to crawl, he has to walk, you know what I mean? And that's everything in life. His Majesty started as the governor of Harar before he sat on the throne, you know what I mean, and demonstrated his competence, you know, on a small level before expanding outwards. So failure is part of the process, but I don't want to fail, family. So please, the like minds, I'm not talking to the people who are questioning if or not, but we'll get to the item in time. Just keep watching and you will see. But I'm talking to the ones already convinced, you know what I mean? Just join us. Make we trample the beast January morning. All right. I also have to big up the Action Lion Pride. Those who cannot afford, they don't have any electronic access, something is going on there. We're not getting into people's personal business, but they like, they comment, they share. Big up every Action Lion Pride, making this thing move, you know what I mean? Big up the watch and peep, those who watch. We did 30,000 views in the last 28 days. You know, that's been growing with over 3,000 hours of content watched in the last 28 days. So it's not just people peeping, you know what I mean? It's people watching the content. So we're humbled. Big up the peepers, them too. The people just peep to see if we're still here, if we pop down or, you know, whatever. Big up the people, them same way. Big up all of the small businesses, Ramia King Design, Ross Lidge, you know what I mean, who are supported from early with his sponsorship, you know what I mean. And tonight, when you see I sipping, I'm going to be sipping Sea Moss Life. I have the Mango Passion. This is the greatest sea moss drink on earth. Big up yourself, Ras Wool. They delivered a fresh package as we celebrated Nana Faraika. Earth Strong, he dropped off a case of sea moss to Nana Faraika and Earth Strong, the elder that you see in the intro, just turned 87. So we, you know, had a gathering for her and very idolful. So she's sipping on the sea moss. I'm going to be sipping on the sea moss Life. Big up Rastafari business out there working and providing services. All right, so housekeeping out of the way. Let's get into tonight's guest. This is an honor. You've seen his queen on the platform twice. And you know, when you see a queen of that caliber, I'm talking about Queen Kwadwo Oppong-Wadie. And when we're going to find out why she have that last name tonight, you know, we touched that too. When you see a queen of that caliber, you know, say the king Pada Heights, you know what I mean? So tonight we're going to bring forward the king for his first, and you know, we don't do one-time interview or reasoning on this platform. This is a community. This is an uprising being displayed in real time. So, you know, we're going to bring him forward. But this is a sweet sip for I, because this is going to be the first time really get to have an in-depth reasoning with the brethren. I've admired the brethren how he cultivates his family from afar. You know what I mean? Brilliant children, educator. Grew up in Ghana. We heard Queen Asantewa's version of the story, of the love story. We're going to get the other side tonight. You know, we hear about the university and this and that. So tonight we're going to get the other side. Lion Pride, help I to welcome Assistant Professor, Rastafari scholar in the area of education, Kwadwo Oppong-Wadie. Welcome, family.
Yes, I the jazz match Rastafari. Give thanks, you know.
Yes, I.
Give thanks to be here. I give thanks to the I you know I am very glad that this platform is here, and I'm very proud that I have to say that when I joined it was less than 300 people, and today you're talking about inching to 20,000. So just big up to the eye. I think this is a testament to the quality of programs that you have on this platform, and it's very much appreciated. So, and I give thanks. It's always a joy to tune in. If I don't get to tune in on Wednesdays, I certainly make it a point, you know, to watch the episodes later on. In fact, my youths always make fun of me that, you know, is this the only thing that you watch? But it's a great platform. So yeah, I mean, it's always a joy, you know. So give thanks. Yeah.
Give thanks, and the fact that I, you know, joined the Patreon, and you know, you're putting your money where your mouth is in terms of investing it in something that's positive. So, you know, publicly again, I just want to say give thanks for the eye and the family, because I know it's a family support. We are humbled and we take the duty seriously. But you know, you come on this platform, you know the drill then. We have to step in the Lion Talk time machine to the day of your birth. Take us to where the eye was born. Set the scene of the eye origin story.
Give thanks once again. I'm Kwadwo Oppong-Wadie, affectionately called Ras Wiro I. Born in the beautiful and picturesque city, harbor city, port city of Tema in Ghana, West Africa. You know, Tema is a city which sits on the Atlantic Ocean, and as a result, there's always influences from all over the world. It is a city that was constructed by our first president, Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, from scratch. It is also the port city, so that's where all the ships dock and everything. So I was born there. I was also raised for the most part there. I went to school at Tema Parents Association School in Tema, initially doing my elementary education. As I went through the stages, I came, you know, in my home, it was a really very rich, print-rich environment. So, you know, I used to read a lot. I know you call yourself the reading rats, which,
yes,
you know, sometimes I have to say that, you know, I thought all races were reading races, but I think I could be wrong, right? But
should be,
it should be, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So coming up in that kind of print-rich environment, I used to really read a lot. Like we had a World Book Encyclopedia. That was my thing. I used to read a lot. And then I also, you know, later on used to read a lot Encyclopedia Britannica as a young person growing up. But in my home, there used to be visitors all the time because of my parents. And the visitors that used to come in also included chiefs, you know, and the chiefs would come in and they would present their rituals, libation and all the, you know, African rituals and stuff like that. So this began to have an influence on me. But there was another thing that really had an influence on me as a young person coming up, because back then they used to propagate the negative idea that, you know, Africans had no knowledge, right? That knowledge was a preserve of Europe. So as a young person growing up, I remember my father had planted some papaya trees in the backyard, and the papaya trees grew up to be male trees. Fortunately, my grandmother on my father's side was visiting. Now, my grandfather, my father's father, it was a very educated person, but my father's mother, she never went to school at all, and so the idea was that, oh, maybe people who don't go to school don't know anything, but that is a false conception, and that false conception was debunked for me at a very young age, when after my father planted these papaya trees and was complaining one day that all the trees are male. So my grandmother, I saw her go to the tree one day, when my father was at work, and literally I saw her performing some kind of operations on the tree, um, not knowing, she was actually grafting the tree based on indigenous knowledge. So within a short time, the tree had converted from being a male tree, all the trees, all the papaya trees, to female trees, and were now bearing fruit. So what that did for me was to affirm for me that yes, there is an African system of knowledge, right? There is a black knowledge. It's just being denied. So it made me begin to ask questions. What is the black person's knowledge? What's the black man's knowledge? And which later on would lead me to ask another question, which I'm going to come to in a little while. But so after that, I went to high school, and in Ghana, most of the time, well, these days it's a little different, but when I was coming up, when you go to high school, you go to boarding school and you stay there, right? So you get away from your parents' house and you go to boarding school, you stay there. So the first boarding school I went to was Okwakumine Secondary, which is in the mountains, just a little further up Ebri Mountains.
And I was told, stick up in, I was told that was done by Kwame Nkrumah to mix the different tribes together and make the school together.
Well, that is partially correct. So initially there were some missionaries who came and established high schools, but they were mostly on the coast, right? In Cape Coast, in particular, in Accra, and places like that. But when Kwame Nkrumah came, he constructed within a short time 400 different high schools across the country. And he also intentionally made it so that he said, as Africans, we need to know ourselves. So if a high school is in like the Upper West region, that does not mean that you have to attend a high school in the Upper West region. You go to another region, go there, learn of the people who are there, learn, get to know each other. So absolutely, that is what Kwame Nkrumah did intentionally, and it brought about a lot of national cohesion that Ghana stands to have benefited from to this day. So when I went to high school, the second high school I went to was Presec, which is right by the University of Ghana, on the way to the Ebru Mountain. So when I went there, there was a lot of Rastafari vibes in that school. It was like everywhere you go, you see red, gold, green, Lion of Judah, quotations everywhere.
Where does that come from in Ghana? Because that was one of the things in 2005 when I went to Ghana for the first time as a Ras. I was so surprised how like the culture was so strong there. We were getting saluted by soldiers, police. It's like a whole energy around Rastafari. Where does that come from in Ghana culture?
Well, that's a very good question. I think that Rastafari has been in Ghana for a very long time. Indeed, if you look in the 1960 report of the brethren who came from Jamaica and toured 5 different African countries, including Ghana, where they met Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. When they came to Ghana at that time, there was Rastafari already in Ghana, and they met those Rastafari, right? So, that culture has been there. But it's also important to know that the kind of respect that Rastafari, Ghanaians in Ghana has been worked for, right? A lot of brethren have gone through a lot of things and have worked very hard to um, garner that level of respect from the people. So, like you said, in Ghana, anywhere you go, whether it's in the bank or at the police barrier, you know, everybody's hailing you, they're greeting you. You walk through certain ghettos and people at left and right shouting Selassie, Rastafari. So it's been something that's been there from ever since. So when I went to Prosec, that was the vibe there. By then, also, I had, I was listening to a lot of reggae music and stuff like that. But when I went to Prosec, maybe I would say when I was around 16 or so, that's when I began to really um, learn deep about Rastafari, and I started to study with the Ethiopian World Federation in Ghana. Now, the Ethiopian World Federation then was headed by a blessed elder, Big Dread, also known as Wodi Mikhail, who's recently become an ancestor. There was one brother, Hill Pupa Levi, who, really assisted in answering questions and giving I and the teaching. So that we were there for a little while through the high school days, learning. And then later I studied with also the 12 tribes of Israel in Ghana. That's how I linked up with people like Bosco. Also big up Jael, who is one of the elders there. And then, afterwards, moved on from there as well and studied on my own. But at the same time, having come through high school, in those days, I was also reading a lot again, I used to go to, back then, the British Council. There was one British Council in Accra and one also in Kumasi. So when I came on holidays, I'll go to the British Council library, which is a world-class library. So they had a lot of books, but fortunately, they had a lot of books focused on Black people, and people just went there to study for their exams. But I went there to go dig in the books, and there were a lot of books by Basil Davidson. And, Basil Davidson is known for really going into African history of ancient, and also looking at how the Greeks viewed Africans and viewed Africa as the land of God, or the land of the gods, right? And also looking at other authors such as Ali Mazrui, who from Kenya, who had some documentaries, he had some books. So at this time, I was really, the many authors, J.A. Rogers from Jamaica, right? G.K. Osei from Ghana, was reading Reverend S.A. Means, The Missing Link in African History, Ishaka Musa Barashango, reading books by Jabon. So having come through all this, and then later on, I have to big up Mama Askali Selassie, who I saw on your
yes.
today. So I meet her and her family, and back then they were producing the books Jahug. Yes. So we began as family, and I contributed 2 articles to two of those volumes, in those series. There were 4 series, so out of the 4 series, 2 of them have 2 articles in them. I was like maybe 2021 or somewhere there. So after that, I went to the University of Ghana and continued my studies over there, which was also a great experience, because going to the University of Ghana again established a strong Rastafari presence, on the campus. And one thing that also aided in that was that at that time, the president of Ghana was Jerry Rawlings, and he had begun a program of liberalizing the airwaves, because prior to that, Ghana had only the state broadcasting corporations. So when he liberalized the airwaves, the university was one of the first to have a radio station. And there was one brother who is now in Canada, and they had discovered some old equipment that was being used in like the 1950s and 1960s to train broadcasters, and they tested the equipment and found that the equipment worked. So they said, let's start a radio station. So he approached me and said, look, we need you, So I came on board and we started the first non-governmental radio station, Radio Universe, which is still there to this day. So presenting on the radio as a reggae presenter, whilst studying in the university. So, I mean, that's just
So stick a pin. The brethren I told you about, Kwadwo Oppong-Wadie, he's on the university radio.
Right, that's what I heard.
Tradition that the I has started. So
True.
Mighty. I go and make sure the I them connect, because
True.
That's a powerful. I didn't even know that I have that connection to the
True.
radio. I've been on that radio station,
Yes,
I've had my music played on that radio station. So that's a powerful connection there.
True.
So by the time you went to the university, you already had locks and everything, or you were?
Yes, indeed. So
how old were you when you put on your locks?
I was 20 years old.
Okay.
So like from between 16 all the way to like 19, I had already declared Rastafari, but because of the system in the school and stuff like that, we walked around. Like I remember I used to have a bag that I used to walk around with, which said strictly Rastafari, right? So we used to study, but by the time, as soon as man graduated from high school, I put on my luck. So when it came time to go to university, the idea was that we have to go to university as a Lux person, right? Because we were thinking that if we do not do that at that time, then what will happen to our children when they come up and they want to go to the university? So fortunately for me, I applied to the University of Ghana, and they admitted me with no problems, no qualms about Lux. They didn't give me any problem at all. They fully welcomed me to the campus, and it continued from there. So yeah.
Were you one of the first with locks on University of Ghana campus?
One of, but not the first, because when I went there, there's a brethren, Rasma Wan, who was a year ahead of me. He was studying performing arts, who was there. I was studying geography and resource development, so more within the mainstream, if you want to call it that way. And then after that, we had brethren who also, came and became part of the Rastafari community in the University of Ghana.
Wow.
And there were other brethren also in the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, which is in Kumasi, who were also holding the fort down there in those days. Yeah.
And the I family, which kingdom is the I family represent? Is it the Ga?
Well, my on my father's side is Ashanti.
Ashanti.
And then on my mother's side is Akuapem.
Okay.
Yes.
Two powerful Akan kingdoms. And of course, we know Ashanti is the majority in the country. I was given an Ashanti name.
Yeah, a powerful name.
Yeah, Kwasi Osei, so that's on my birth certificate.
Right.
So my father is very much, very passionate about the Ashanti, because of the impact they played in Jamaica in the history. Although it was a lot of Coromantee in Jamaica. And
Coromantee is also part of the Akan people.
Yeah.
And actually, I think also it's important that part of on the coast there is the city of Coromantee, but there's also a slave dungeon right there in Coromantee. So anybody who came through that particular slave dungeon to the Western world was also referred to as Coromantee.
Yes, and they're more with the Fanti side of things.
Absolutely.
But one of the things that we know now as the diaspora that we contribute is that all of these bloodlines connect.
Absolutely.
So we are the diaspora is the ones who are now going to be that glue to glue that tribalism, because we have no choice but to be Pan-African, because we don't know which kingdoms are people exactly.
Well, but also it is also important to note that even being born on the continent, you still don't have any choice than to be Pan African. And I say this because most of the time, when we people talk about ethnic groups and so-called tribes and stuff, they make it seem as if these things are static, right? But there has never been a time like that. In fact, right now, when you ask me which ethnic group, I said, my father's side is Ashanti, but and then my mother's side is Ethiopian. But then when I look at it, when I go into the history, when I go right past my grandfather on my father's side, and even my grandmother also on my father's side, they were Dentra people, which is a different ethnic group. So within a short time, you move from one ethnic group to the other. The same thing with my mother's side. Today they are Ethiopian people, but about 150 years ago, or maybe even less, they were Guan people, right? So ethnic groups in Africa have never been like a monolith or something that is static. Is always dynamic. People moving in and moving on. So there is that essential desire for Pan Africanism, and that has also been laid down by our very first president, Osachuku Dr. Kwame Nkrumah.
Yes, and we're gonna get into that history, but how did the eyes see the divinity of Haile Selassie coming from? Where your family was Christian in
Yes,
that time. Okay, so you're coming from a Christian background, but you say you still had to interact with the chiefs. We know the traditional ways are still there. So how did I reconcile all these factors you were seeing with the divinity of His Majesty, and how do you see that divinity today?
Yes, So as I mentioned earlier on, I began by asking the question, what was wrong with the black man's knowledge before the white man came? And that's the question that led me to do a lot of research and to learn a lot. But that question also led me to another question. What's wrong with the black man's God before the white man came?
Okay.
Right? And so, as I mentioned earlier on, I read a lot about Basil Davidson's work and the Greeks, for instance. If you look at their deities and stuff, there's a lot of black deities. And in fact, we sing, as Rastafari, we sing Ethiopia, the land of our fathers, the land where our God loves to be, coming from that Greek Ethiopia, the land where the gods love to be, right? And as Marcus Garvey said, let the God of Jacob, the people who believe in the God of Jacob, worship him through the eyes of the God of Jacob. But we as Ethiopians will worship our God through the eyes of Ethiopia. So this framework led me to study and to acknowledge the divinity of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I the First, but also coming through the point you made earlier on, that having come up through the Western knowledge and also the African knowledge, and knowing that the concept of divine kingship is something that is intrinsic to the African culture. So, seeing His Imperial Majesty as the divine king fit perfectly for me into that realm of Africanity, if you want to put it that way. Answering the question, where is the black man's God, right? And what was wrong with the God of the black people before the white man came? And if the Greeks did tell us that the land of Punt is in Ethiopia, and that's where the gods love to be, and we say that Ethiopia is the land where our God loves to be, then definitely Emperor Haile Selassie I the First and Empress Menen present us with this divinity that we hail in this time. So, having studied, I think that as coming up, the first was to look at these things, and then coming through studying with the Ethiopian World Federation and the 12 tribes, which was more of a biblical focus. But even then, right, and graduating from that and to looking at things with the spectacles of Ethiopia, as Marcus Garvey did say, we still see this divinity of His Majesty Haile Selassie as King of Kings and Lord of Lords and conquering Lion of the tribe of Judah. So that's how I come in within that realms.
One of the things that struck eye because the first time I went to Kumasi and we were in the Palace of the Asantehene, and they have a medal in a case that His Majesty gave to the Asantehene Ose Tutu, and he gave him the title of the Lion of Judah. And our guide at the time was letting us know, how all of the royal house acknowledge, Ethiopia, and how the Ashanti had a tradition that is where they forwarded from, from East Africa, from Ethiopia. And, to see that relationship between the royal houses, that I don't think we get that in the West, how even the royal houses kind of bow before His Majesty and acknowledge Ethiopia as, the highest throne. Was they aware of that knowledge coming up, or?
Absolutely. So again, when I first saw that is when I was in high school. There's a place known as the Military Museum, which is in Kumasi, and when I went on vacation there, I would go there just to check out the artifacts and stuff like that. And that's the first time I saw the present that His Imperial Majesty gave to the Ashanti people, which is still there to this day.
Okay. Give thanks. Give thanks. Is that the same medal or that was a different present?
I believe it's the same one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Give
I believe
thanks.
it's the same one. Yeah.
Give thanks. But yeah, it's very powerful.
Yeah,
Now,
but even not to cut you back quickly, I just also want to point out that, for instance, even in Ghana, there's a lot of places which are named after Ethiopia. So, for instance, we have Gondar Barracks, right, after the province of Gondar in Ethiopia, and such other names, right? So, like you said, the link has always been there, right? It's not this isolation that we are made to
believe in the West. All right. So, talk to us about the university, Rasan campus. What was that energy like? Because in here, the beginning of a love story also is being sparked here. Talk to us about, we want to set the stage dramatically.
True. I mean, University of Ghana was great. It was a great time. We met a lot of people. As a RAS on the campus, it was a great vibe. I mean, everybody used to pass through, I gates. People always wanted to vibe with Rasta, and it was a positive thing. Of course, we went there to study, but there was also the social aspect, and that is where I also met my empress, Asantua, as a young people, coming up. So, it was all about, I was an ITAR chef. I still am, right?
Yeah.
So, we had been on strike at the university. The university had been on strike, and the strike initially was thought that it was going to be a short-lived strike, but it went on for a long time, maybe about a year or so. And yeah, so at that time, the faculty had put down their tools, saying that they were demanding better conditions of work before they would come back to the classroom. So we were there on campus, just day to day, hoping that they would just call up the strike and come back, but they weren't. Just around the same time, we're having students who were coming in from the United States. My empress being one of them. I cooked ITAL food all the time, and I even people from Jamaica, when they came to the university, I always was the one hosting them, cooking and stuff like that. So these people coming from the United States, some of them being vegetarians, were looking for something of that nature, and people pointed out, our brethren, he's always cooking ITIL food. So we hosted some of the students that included my empress as well, and then from there we began to talk when we saw each other, and then we began to hang out a little bit more, and then we became a couple, and we're still here to this day. So
When did you see that spark? Was it the first interaction, or it took a little while before you sight up that spark and know this is going to be Iman Queen?
Well, the spark was there from the first time, but it's certainly it's not something that at the same time is spontaneous, right?
Yes,
You have to work with each other for a little while. So that's what happened, and also check out the vibe. So it was positive in that way.
Give thanks. Give thanks. We love the love stories here.
Yes, I. So
yeah. Any black man that's leading a black family right now, I salute. It's not easy, So and the I family have a beautiful, brilliant family. So we really salute the I and the Queen as the example,
True. Yeah. So that was the love story. That's how it started, right? And also back then I told you I was working on the radio. So sometimes when I was going to the radio station, she would come with me just to
Yes.
come and sit, and then I'll be, playing the music and DJing and stuff like that. So, love conquered all things,
All things. And you put on 2 selection fair sometime and thing.
True. Yeah.
We love it. So I wanna bring us to our topic. But before we get into the topic, give us a little history on the creation of the modern state of Ghana, including Nkrumah, the founding fathers, just for those who are not familiar with Ghana, why Ghana is special, why there's a black star on the flag, the red, gold, and green. You know what I mean? Just give us, there is a professor, I know we're getting a treat tonight. So I want to just bless up the family with a macro, we don't have to go into the details, but a one-on-one. Give us a one-on-one on the formation of the modern Ghana.
Well, give thanks for that question, the jazz match. So modern Ghana came into existence in 1957, but prior to that, it was known as the Gold Coast, a name that was bequeathed by the European colonial masters. So when the European colonial masters came to Africa, particularly on the West Coast, they would give names to places based on the kind of resources they extracted from these places. So, for instance, we have the Rice Coast, and then we have the Slave Coast, right, which is now known as Nigeria. And then they had the Gold Coast, which is Ghana, and then they had the Ivory Coast, which is Cote d'Ivoire, right? So they gave these kind of names. And with colonialism came the missionary activity, where the missionaries actually developed a kind of brainwash education system for I people. And you will see that even to this day, there's a lot of people with European names and stuff. Somebody like my mother, for instance, when she went to school, in a missionary school, the missionaries did not want to pronounce her African name. So, they gave you a European name and told you that that's what your name was going to be. The same thing happened to Nelson Mandela when he went to school. He was never called Nelson, but the missionaries gave him the name Nelson. So, at that time of colonial rule, there was the Gold Coast colony, which was basically the southern part of Ghana today. And then there was the Ashanti, which was a protectorate of Britain. And then there was also the Northern Territories, which was also a protectorate of Britain. So after, the Europeans had been there for a while, of course, one thing that really had a positive impact was the world wars, right? A lot of people who left from Ghana to go and fight in those wars from Gold Coast in that time. When they came back, they were like, you know what? There's no way we need to sit down for these people to be ruling us. We've been to their countries; they are nothing. I mean, we teach them everything. We kill them. We do everything that there's no reason why we have to have them rule us. So there was agitation for independence. But Sergeant Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was brought in. He had been studying in the United States. He went to Lincoln University, and then
HBCU.
HBCU, absolutely.
Right.
And then he also was one of the primary organizers for the Pan African movement here in the United States and also in England. So there was a formation known as the United Gold Coast Convention, UGCC, and their primary objective in those days was to agitate for an end to colonial rule, but they were not really in a hurry for colonial rule to end, and they were only wanted it to be like a gradual process where whenever the white man wanted to end colonial rule, he would end it and then he would bequeath rulership to them because they saw themselves as the educated people whose fathers were mostly the chiefs. They had been educated in like Oxford and Cambridge and all these big universities. So one of them suggested that, there's a young man who is doing wonderful things in the United States and in England, and they think that they should bring the young man to become a general secretary of that party. So they invited Kwame Nkrumah to come home from the West. He came and assumed the position of the general secretary. But then within a very short time, he realized that his objectives and their objectives were not the same. He wanted independence like today, right now, and they were like, "No, you're moving too fast. Let's take our time. We don't need the white man to just leave right away. Let's work with him until such time." So Kwame Nkrumah broke away from that party to put it briefly and formed his own party known as the Convention People's Party, the CPP. And then he organized a grassroots movement where he went from village to village, from city to city, from town to town, talking to the people, telling them about the need for independence immediately. So to cut a long story short, when the colonial masters realized the impact that he was having, they put him in jail. And whilst he was in jail, they held elections, thinking that, they were going to have their candidates be the ones who were going to win the election. But Kwame Nkrumah won the election landslide from behind bars. And and they had to release him. So when they released him, he came out and also demanded independence now. So in 1957, he was able to win that independence for Ghana, becoming the first country to gain that independence south of the Sahara from colonial rule. Now, when he did that, he didn't end there, right? He said, in fact, on the day of independence, he said that the independence of Ghana is meaningless unless it is linked with the total liberation of the African continent.
Mm-hmm.
So once he became the prime minister of Ghana, he made it a point to work towards the liberation of the African continent. In fact, it is said that he had a map of Africa in his office, and he would check off, the countries that were gaining independence from colonial masters from time to time, and the ones that he had to be worked on. So I'm saying practically, he set up bases in Ghana where most of these freedom fighters would come and train and go back to their countries. And this even included people like Robert Mugabe, the former prime minister of Zimbabwe. There were many people who came to Ghana for that. Now, Kwame Nkrumah, unfortunately, was overthrown in 1966, having ruled Ghana for about 9 years, and having made a great impact, an impact that is still very, very visible to this day. Now, you talked about the flag of Ghana. Kwame Nkrumah, also was a student of Marcus Garvey, right? When he was in the Western hemisphere. He got introduced to Marcus Garvey. He became part of the UNIA. And when he, as a young person, he was also under the tutelage of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I. So the first country that Ghana visited, Kwame Nkrumah visited when Ghana gained independence was Ethiopia, right? And you may see that or may notice that most African countries do have red, gold, green in their flag colors, right? And that is an ode to the flag of Ethiopia, right? So Kwame Nkrumah did combine the red, gold, green, and also put in the black star, which is coming from Marcus Garvey. And in fact, not only that, um, the national team is still today known as the Black Stars of Ghana. And then, there we had a shipping line known as the Black Star Shipping Line, which, is defunct now. But this whole idea of the Black Star was very much ingrained. I mentioned earlier also that this whole idea of Pan Africanism was even there way before Kwame Nkrumah came on the scene. So we look at somebody like Chief Sam, in 1914, before Marcus Garvey, was one of the earliest people who came from the continent of Africa to the United States and repatriated 60 families from the United States to then Gold Coast in 1914. So this whole idea of Pan-Africanism was solidified by Kwame Nkrumah during his tenure as president, and it was so entrenched that even those who may not ideologically necessarily agree with him do not have any choice but to at least pay some sort of lip service to these ideals. So in 1966, Kwame Nkrumah was overthrown by a military.
Stick a pin before you get to 1966. Who are some of the other players that were around Kwame? They call them the founding fathers. You see their image in Ghana.
Yeah.
Can you block about who some of these people were?
Well, yeah, but that whole idea of the founding fathers is a revisionist history.
Okay, give us the fullness, King.
True. So Kwame Nkrumah is the founding father of Ghana. There's no founding fathers. In fact, those people who are being accorded the title of founding fathers today they declared that they were not in a hurry for independence. In fact, some of them even went as far as going to England to tell the monarchy and the rulers of England not to entertain what Kwame Nkrumah was doing. So I don't see how today they can come and want to bask in the glory that is being accorded to Kwame Nkrumah. So there was no founding fathers. There was a founding father, but it is important to know that there were some other people who were around Kwame Nkrumah who did excellent work. One of them being George Padmore. When I was a young person growing up, I didn't even know that George Padmore was not born in Ghana, right? That's how much entrenched he is in the psyche and the history of Ghana. Only later to find out that he was born in Trinidad, and then came to assist Kwame Nkrumah to establish the state of Ghana. So, there is a library in Accra known as the George Padmore Library. That's one of the places that I used to also really like to frequent as a teenager and study. So George Padmore, and then we had people like Bedema, we had people like Kojo Botsio. These were the people who really worked with Kwame Nkrumah to fashion out the new state that has become known as Ghana. But as for those people who are trying to reclaim or trying to claim credit today as founding fathers, they were not even fighting for independence of what we know today as Ghana. It was Kwame Nkrumah who went around the northern territories, the Ashanti, and say, you know what, let us all come together and create this state as Ghana, right? Those people were only looking for some kind of rulership to be bequeathed to them after the British had departed, for them to be the ones in control of the Gold Coast colony, which was the southern part of Ghana. but it was Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah who went around and actually brought together what we know today as the Volta region, Transvolta Togoland, the Gold Coast Colony, Ashanti, and also the Northern Territories to create this new state of Ghana.
This is why we need a Rastafari perspective on the history family. We are getting this from a Pan-African brethren who was born on the continent, born in Ghana. Is not talking about where him here say, is where him grew up and learn and see. So this is the value. And we have some of the Lion Pride in the house. Big up Elder Bongo Wisely, St. Lucia checking in. Our powerful Elder Bongo Wisely, Grand Rising family, love and light. Gain up me, West Coast checking in. I think I saw the eye on the continent too, gain up me in Ghana. Is the Aya citizen? She's just shared this with Papa Wastik and Empress Q. Yes. Big up all the Ghana family. I know Ghana family will tune in on this one. Yes. Big up, likes. Definitely family. Big up all of the Lion Pride on Patreon. All of the Lion Pride family checking in. We are getting a great history here of the founding. One of the things I always wondered as an outsider is how did Kwame Nkrumah, who is not Ashanti, manage to convince the Ashanti kingdom to support his independence drive? You know what I mean? What was that relationship like between Kwame and Nkrumah, who was from a smaller kingdom, and the Ashanti kingdom?
Well, that's a great question. I think that is through his works. So, in fact, the title of Sajifo was actually given to him by the Ajiman Prempe, who was the king of the Ashanti people at that time. He bequeathed the title of Sajifo to Kwame Nkrumah. Sajifo meaning savior of the nation, right?
Yeah.
Yes. He, like I said, he went around, speaking to the chiefs. The chiefs, most of them were with him, saying that, let's fight against colonial rule. Let's emancipate ourselves from colonial rule. Let's establish our own state. So that was the initial case. But it was after independence, for instance, that some people began to kick against the idea of the nation state and wanted to have a federal state instead. And the thing about a federal state was that, the Ashanti region, for instance, is one of the gold-laden places of the whole world. Like there's a lot of gold over there, which has been mined for centuries. But if it had been a federal state, then that simply meant that the resources that came from that region would be meant for the development of that region, whilst the other regions had to also, find their own resources to develop their regions. But that was not the vision that Kwame Nkrumah had. Kwame Nkrumah had a vision that, we all share whatever resources come from whichever part of Ghana. So, that movement came for federalism, but it died out after a while.
Okay, and all right, so we can get to the coup d'etat that removed. Now there was some people saying that Nkrumah started moving like a dictator. There were some people, he was not loved particularly by the Francophone countries. The whole Casablanca, Monrovia controversy, because they felt he was fomenting unrest, arming rebel groups, as you say. So he was not a man that was well loved outside of Guinea and Mali and Morocco. Certain, he made some friends, Egypt. But what was that 9 years of Nkrumah? Describe some of the victories, and then also what were some of the challenges, and then maybe some of the things he didn't do so well.
So, first of all, detractors always try to find something to create disaffection for a person. And one thing that they tried to use against Kwame Nkrumah was that he had moved Ghana to a one-party state. which is true. But nobody ever discusses why he had to take that decision. Kwame Nkrumah was on a path that he was progressing Ghana and also for Africa at large. And these people were trying to do everything they could to destabilize him. I mean, he had about 48 different attempts on his life, right? In the 1960s, right? So he had to come up with something that was going to prevent that kind of situation from detracting him from his path. But within the 9 years that Kwame Nkrumah was the head of state of the president of Ghana, I can say that that period still stands as the standard period for Ghana even to this day. Kwame Nkrumah, first of all, established the first hydroelectric dam in Ghana during his tenure. And
Water Dam.
yes, absolutely. So that began generating electricity for Ghana, because what his idea was that the Akosombo Dam was going to generate that electricity that was going to support manufacturing in areas like Tema, which was the manufacturing hub, and also the port city, and which was actually what happened. During that time, there were a lot of things that Ghana produced, right, and exported to the world, from this idea of Kwame Nkrumah creating an industrial powerhouse in Ghana. Now, apart from that, you mentioned earlier about education. Kwame Nkrumah made sure that education was not a preserve of the missions, which of course always had an agenda, of Christianizing the so-called natives, right? Kwame Nkrumah, within his short time, established more than 400 schools, and when I say 400 schools, these are huge schools with thousands of students, right? Kwame Nkrumah established the University of Ghana. Kwame Nkrumah established the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. In fact, Kwame Nkrumah also, in those days, in the 1960s, established an atomic energy plant in Ghana to develop atomic energy. It's still there to this day. So when we talk about the achievements of Kwame Nkrumah, they really are unparalleled, right? And not only is his impact felt in Ghana, but beyond the shores of Ghana. And you're right, there were certain people outside the shores of Ghana who did not necessarily want to entertain his ideas and his movements. But we find out most of those people were also working on behalf of the colonial powers. And the colonial powers were using those people to keep many francophone and anglophone countries in continuous subjugation. So Kwame Nkrumah stands tall. His impact is felt not only in Ghana or Africa, but throughout the Black world, throughout the diaspora as well, right? Because he worked a lot with the Caribbean. He worked a lot with the United States, and also, when I say United States, I mean Black United States, and also, England and stuff like that.
Give thanks. So talk to us about the coup d'etat.
So the coup d'etat came in
go ahead.
1966 when Kwame Nkrumah was away in I've forgotten the name of the country, somewhere in Eastern Europe, and they overthrew him. So he went to Guinea under the invitation of Sekou Touré, who was the leader of Guinea at the time, and he became the co-president of Guinea from the time that he was overthrown in Ghana until the time he passed away in 1972. And from his time as leader of Ghana till the time he passed away in 1972, he wrote about 30 books, books that continue to have a continued impact on the African world. When I was a young person, I'm still kind of young, but when when I was like maybe 19, 20, I also joined the AAPRP, which is the All Africa People's Revolutionary Party, which was started by Kwame Nkrumah. And, we got to read a lot of his books during that time as well. Books such as Conscientism, Africa Unite, which is a brilliant piece of work. All of his work. So 1966 came the coup. 1972, there was another coup, this time by General Kutu Achampong, who was a progressive leader, and he was also a Pan Africanist. So he took out, power away from, the government of Prime Minister Buzia and Akufo-Addo, who is the father of the current president of Ghana. So
Is that Adu or Mahama?
Ado.
Adu.
Mahama, it will be Mahama is not yet in. He will be coming in on January 7th.
Yeah,
Right.
so that was his father was
his
the one
father.
that was co-opted by
Right.
those.
His father's government was a reactionary kind of government.
Okay.
Right? So they were overthrown by Kutu Achampong. Kutu Achampong came in, and he right away saw that the European powers were using debt to control Africa and Ghana in particular. So he decided to embark on a program known as Operation Feed Yourself. And this program encouraged agriculture on a mass scale. And not only that, he made it so that everybody had some kind of garden or farm. Now, when he realized that, okay, now Ghana was self-sufficient in terms of food, he declared to the IMF and World Bank that we are not going to pay any money that you claim that we owe you. Right? So he also was head of state for a little while until 1997, when he was also overthrown by General Ekufu, who lasted for a short while. And then in came Jerry Rawlings, who assumed power. As a young person in Ghana, he assumed power as a very young person. He was 32 years old when he became the head of state, and he was head of state and president for 19 years until he was, elections were held and he lost the elections, and then President Kufuor came in. He did his tenure, and then after him came President Mills, and President Mills did his first term, and then after the first term, he passed away. So President Mahama, who was then the vice president to President Mills, assumed power until the duration of that tenure, and then also won elections and stayed for ruled for 4 years. And then came Akufo-Addo, who has been on for 8 years and has also now lost the election again to President Mahama, who will be sworn in on the 7th of January, 2025. So that's a brief history of
Give thanks. Very, very, very powerful, very concise, and I love it. And there is going to have to be a regular contributor here when we go into West Africa, because I love how the eye is a professor, so we're getting a free lecture here on the Lion Voice Network. Powerful, powerful. So that brings us to the topic of tonight. Ghana has just had an election. How do you characterize Mahama, his first term? Was the eye living in Ghana at that time, or you were already in America that time?
I was already in America, but I used to visit Ghana.
Yes. Okay, so give us how did you feel about Mahama first term? Did he achieve anything? What is his view? And then we'll talk about what we can anticipate with this new term.
True. So I think that one of the things that Mahama really achieved during his 4-year term as president was he embarked on a lot of infrastructural projects. So road networks, right? Hospitals, all across the country. He within the short time, his impact was really felt in terms of infrastructure. But then, you know, um, of course, in politics you have the two party system where the other party was able to characterize him at that time as being incompetent and that they were going to be able to do better if the people voted for them. So, having served for the remainder of Professor Mills' presidency and also his 4-year tenure, the people felt like if these people are saying they were going to do better, then let's give them an opportunity to come in. So that's when Akufo-Addo won the elections and came in as president. But again, just on the 7th of this month, President Mahama has been voted in again because I think that the people of Ghana also want a change. He won in what I would call to be a landslide election, right? So I think that in his manifesto, um, according to his party, they went around the country and listened to the concerns of the people, and they used that to write their manifesto. I also want to say that the election of Mahama um, has also brought in the first female vice president of Ghana, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, who is somebody who is going to make a positive impact. She was a minister for education in the first Mahama government, and her orientation is a positive orientation. She looks at things through the lens of Africa as opposed to the colonial Western lens. So, having achieved this feat of being voted in as the first female vice president, there is expectation of what she herself and Mahama are going to be able to do. But it's also important to point out that the expectations right now are very, very high for Mahama. And they're going to have to put in a lot of work. I think that he's going to have to be bold and make some decisions that will leave a lasting legacy and impression for Ghana. But so far, some of the things that they're talking about are positive. They're looking at implementing something called the Buy Ghana agenda, where goods made in Ghana are encouraged. They're talking about having a 24-hour economy where people can work shifts in manufacturing and so on. They're talking about agriculture, embarking on agricultural policy. They're talking about diaspora affairs, having continued engagement with the diaspora. In fact, one of the things that they're talking about is streamlining the process of diasporans and acquiring citizenship in Ghana. They're talking about Pan-Africanism. They're talking about health. So far, the things they're talking about is positive, but it remains to be seen, right? So hopefully he's able to make those bold decisions that will bring these things into actualization.
Because of course, as someone who is moving to Ghana, that's my concern as diaspora. Will he continue? We just saw, and I did an episode. I don't know if you saw the episode about the 534 people who attained citizenship under this present government, which we could argue, maybe was a political move at the end of his, close to the election. But, our concern is, we're not getting into the minutiae of the politics yet until we're citizens. We're very careful. But really, will this government continue? And I'm hearing from the eye now that you feel that they will continue the process of Ghana, of accelerated Ghana citizenship. There was a bill that was floating around. I don't know if it's still in Parliament that outlined the citizenship process for the diaspora and define who the African diaspora was. Do you know anything about that bill?
Well, no, but I can certainly find out about it. But in terms of Mahama disrupting the process of diaspora engagement, I don't see that happening. In fact, he was one of the people who was forefront in granting citizenship to diasporans prior to him losing elections to Akufo-Addo, right? And in Ghana, really, I don't think any president can come and say that they are disengaging the diaspora. I think that Osajifo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah really entrenched the idea of Pan-Africanism um, in the psyche of the Ghanaian people. So even those who are ideologically opposed to Kwame Nkrumah still engage in diaspora relations, as we have seen under President Kufuor and also under President Akufo-Addo, right? So certainly I don't see that as something that President Mahama will discontinue at all.
What was the impact of the year of return on Ghana? Looking from outside, I don't know if you got the chance to travel that year. This was right before COVID 2019. What impact do you think that had on Ghana?
I think similar to the Soul to Soul concert that was held in Ghana in I think 1972. I think the year of return did shed a lot of light on Ghana across the African diaspora and the African world in particular, right? I think that in modern times there has not been an occasion where a state says that we are inviting all sons and daughters in the diaspora to come home, and apart from that, initiates activities and welcoming and programs of engagement on business level, on the social level, on the economic level. So yeah, that impact was there. There was also the impact of financial, because people coming in, spending money, contributes to the economy. I know there has been mention of the year of return possibly having a negative impact in terms of escalating prices, but I don't blame that on the year of return. I think that that is more to be blamed on, Ghana finding oil, some few years ago, and a lot of people coming into the oil business, and when they come in, for instance, whatever price an apartment or a home is asked for, they just pay that price. They don't even negotiate because they are in the oil business. They're able to afford that kind of thing. The year of return was more of you know a come, and then most people who came did not necessarily stay. They went back to their residence, the places of abode. But people like in the oil industry and stuff like that, they live there, right? And I think that they have been major contributors to
Inflation,
soaring prices of goods and stuff like that. And then socially, I think that the year of return was also positive socially, because it afforded the diasporans to experience, the people of Ghana, the landscape of Ghana. It afforded the people of Ghana to interact with brothers and sisters in the diaspora on a one-on-one kind of basis. So I think it was positive. I mean, in that way. I mean, of course, there is also the talk of the government using that as a income generation strategy, and I think that is also is also something that is factual, right? But I also even within that, it's also, it gave a great opportunity for people in the diaspora who maybe never thought that they would be able to visit the motherland, to be able to go and experience it.
Definitely, and I love the fact that Ghana right now is leading, all of West Africa, the entire continent when it comes on to the topic of repatriation. I tell people that Accra right now is like Harlem in the 1920s, because this confluence of all these black people from all over the world. You go Dirty December this month, if you can afford the $2,000-$3,000 ticket and you fly there, you're gonna see all of the black world, or a large, you're gonna see celebrities, athletes, Afrobeat artists, dancehall, reggae artists. You're gonna see the whole cornucopia of the Pan-African reality.
True.
In Ghana in December, you know what I mean? And this is the vision that Kwame Nkrumah had realized in real time. I tell everyone, it's something even if Ghana's not your space, because I know a lot of ones want to go East Africa, some South Africa, but even if Ghana's not your space, you have to experience being in Ghana, being in Accra, feeling that energy. At least, this time, this is the time to do it. You know what I mean? Now, let's talk about the Sahel and what's happening. We have a wave of anti-colonial sentiment taking place on the continent right now. I just did an episode on Ibrahim Traore, which is doing very well on the platform. That shows even the interest. This young brethren, 35, and I'm going to bring you forward too, because I want to go do a deep dive on Jerry Rawlings as well. So I'm going to have to bring that forward for that. But we have seen the military coup, the charismatic revolutionary leader. We see the same thing in Mali. The same thing is happening right now in Niger as well. What are your thoughts first in terms of what is happening with the Sahel region?
Well, give thanks for the question. I think that for me it's a positive thing. I know some people criticize because they came under coup d'etats and overthrew civilian governments in some cases, and also in the case of Burkina Faso, overthrew a previous military government. But then, the thing is, let's look at who is not happy with what is going on in Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso. France has continued to be a colonial power in Francophone Africa, even though they have claimed for a long time that they are not necessarily so. Let me give you a typical example. So even though independence was granted to these countries, France set it up so that Francophone countries have to have their deposits, their national deposits, banked in the French National Bank. And then when these countries need their own money, they have to go and borrow that money from France and then pay an interest on the money that they deposited in French banks. In fact, the former French president, Francois Mitterrand, he said that had it not been for Africa, France would be what he called a so-called third world country. And it is very true. So what is going on in Burkina Faso is a time of self-determination by the people of Burkina Faso under the leader Ibrahim Traore. What is going on in Niger, which literally lights up France, because most of over 90% of the uranium that is used in providing electricity in France comes from Niger, whereas the people in Niger barely had any electricity. The same thing with Mali. So these military uprisings that we see in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger are also mostly backed by the people of these countries, right? They are popular movements. So when we look at someone like Ibrahim Traore, excuse me, um, he came in as a military young man, 36 years old. But at the same time, one of the first things he did was to say, you know what, I don't need any presidential salary. So he does not take salary as a president. He's paid the same salary that he was getting as a captain in the army. Look at what he's done within his short time in Burkina Faso, right? He has totally transformed the health sector, and by introducing mobile clinics, which go from place to place, give people screenings, administer health services to people. He has totally transformed the agricultural sector, because he said, why do we have so much tomatoes in Burkina Faso, and yet we have to import tomato paste from Italy, right? So right now, Burkina Faso is manufacturing its own tomato paste, right? Apart from that, he's looking at, industrialization for Burkina Faso. Um, he has established a hydroelectric dam as well, providing electricity to the people of Burkina Faso. He brought in 400 tractors and established a farming scheme where farmers get to use these tractors to till the land for free, right? It's a community thing where these tractors are distributed throughout the country, and farmers, if you need it, you go get it, you go till your land, you bring it back, another person, gets to use it, transforming the agricultural sector. So I think that to me, it doesn't, like His Majesty said, these things, when you talk about governments, democracy, and communism, and military rule, they're just names, they're just titles, right? Monarchical rule and all this, they're just titles. What matters is, are these leaders working on behalf of their people? And absolutely, we see that happening in Burkina Faso, we see that happening in Mali, and we see that happening in Niger. So from where I stand, I can only wish them well. I think that also one of the things that Burkina Faso has done recently is to establish a national bank. So right now they have seceded from the National Bank of France and doesn't have to go to make deposits in the French National Bank. They are doing that in their own country. That is what real independence is about, not the kind of fake independence where you're nominally granted independence, but at the same time you have to kowtow to the whims and caprices of the colonial power. So I think that what's happening is a positive thing. There are other African countries who are looking to have a more pro-African direction. We're looking in Senegal right now. We're seeing that the leader over there is also making some pro-African moves, and we hope that that continues across the continent. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the form of a military, but it has to be an orientation that the government has that is more in the interest of the African people, instead of just simply acting as managers of the economy on behalf of the Western powers.
How do you feel about these Sahel countries leaving ECOWAS?
Well, I think that, I think it's a positive thing, in the sense that when they initially staged their coup d'etats and took control over those countries, the Western world tried to use ECOWAS against them, right? By threatening that they were going to send their soldiers to come into those countries to restore democratic rule in those environments. So I think that was the basis for them leaving ECOWAS. I think that the ECOWAS bloc, instead of having them leave the bloc, should have also worked to bring them back into the fold. And I think that that's something that they're going to be working on eventually. But right now, according to them, they've suspended those countries, and that they have given them 6 months to come back, or face you know further sanctions or whatever. But the thing is that even within this milieu, we see that Burkina Faso has made it so that free movement for people, in the sub region, and also in the wider African context. So I think that ECOWAS will eventually have to work to bring them back in. But for right now, I think is a statement that they are also making, saying that if you are going to be opposed to this pro-African movement that is happening, then you're not going to be dealt with in the same block. So they have isolated themselves, so to speak, and they have created their own block, the organization of Sahelian states, right? So it remains to be seen, but I think that eventually there would have to be some moves to bring those countries back into the fold. And I think that is also hypocritical on the part of ECOWAS, to isolate them, just because of them having come through coup d'etats, right? Because there are other people within those states which have acted likewise, and there are many very pro-Western um, governments, which act against the people on behalf of the Western powers, which ECOWAS has not sanctioned. So ECOWAS will have to um, take take its time and bring Mali, Burkina Faso, and Nigeria back into the fold. And I think they're going to do that eventually. I think that right now they're just trying to save face, because of the shameful act of being used by the Western powers to threaten independent states in the Sahel.
Yes. One of the things that I found very interesting and even, I dare say, hopeful was that Mahama, one of his lines of attack on the government was how they dealt with the Sahel countries. He signaled that he would, one of his things would be to do some outreach to the Sahel countries. And that gave me a little bit of hope. Bongo Wisely is asking, will Ghana leave ECOWAS? How do I feel about that?
No, I don't think Ghana is going to leave ECOWAS. I think that, you mentioned Mahama. It was when he won the elections just a few weeks ago. Ibrahim Traore sent him a message, and basically saying in polite terms that, I'm looking forward to you living up to your stance, as wanting to work with us, right? That is the Burkinabes. A place like Ghana and Burkina Faso, coming up under Rawlings and Thomas Sankara, it was just brotherly, sisterly countries, right? So no, I think Mahama is actually going to take a different stance from the Akufo-Addo government. I think he's going to be working towards reaching out to Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. I don't think he's going to take an oppositional stand, and I also don't think Ghana is going to leave ECOWAS.
So you think that the Mahama may be the bridge that helps to bring them forward into ECOWAS?
Potentially, right? Potentially. I mean, if he reaches out to them and gains their trust, then he can act as that bridge.
Give thanks. Big up Johnny Johnson. He said, true UN, African Union, ECOWAS are tools of Francophone and Anglophone, CIA, FBI, Mossad instruments, and instruments of and against Pan-Africanism or perished peoples.
Yes.
How do you feel about that statement?
Yeah. I mean, Pan-Africanism or perish, right? Therefore, if we are not looking towards Pan-Africanist ideals, and by Pan-African ideals, we're looking at all forms of Pan-Africanism, right? We're looking at political, economic, social, etc. So anything that stands in the way of achieving that must be removed. And we have seen ECOWAS being used by these colonial powers against the people of Africa. We see the same thing in other regional blocks across Africa. So if we don't reorient towards a Pan-Africanist stance, that is going to be detrimental. But we also have to move out anything that acts against that Pan-Africanist ideology and stance. And so if you're called ECOWAS, Economic Community of West African States, but your behavior is towards the Economic Community of Europe and America, then, you know, we got to look at you differently, and we got to question why that is so.
Serious thing. Our elder Ras Makapi, UK, checking in. Big up Ras Makapi. Said Rastafari blessings. Has the wholesale adoption of the Western democratic model been beneficial for African countries?
I don't think so. And I don't think so because, forms of governance emanate from the culture of the people. So when, for instance, after the United States gained its independence from Britain, they adopted this multi-party democratic system because primarily they didn't want the poor people to identify the rich as the causes of their problems and rise up against them. Now, Africa, if you look at traditional systems of governance, it has its own democratic elements to it. And I think that one of the things that African countries or African states should have adopted or created at the time of independence, and it's not even too late to do that right now, is to look at our indigenous forms of governance and fashion whatever democratic models of government that we want to have after those. I think one of the things that we see also, for instance, is that the 4 years that most democratic governments are accorded is too short for us, right? We need more time, maybe 7 years in one dispensation to be able to actualize some things. So no, I don't think the wholesale adoption of the Western model has been beneficial for Africans. I think Africans need to fashion out their own or our own democratic systems of governance based on our indigenous systems of governance.
Serious thing. Johnny Johnson, anytime you can get Kenya, Jamaica, and other puppets, Commonwealth, Westminster, Viceroy fools to become soldiers of fortune for white capitalism, Cuba. Never forget the Battle of Quito, Cuernavaca in Angola. I'm not familiar with that one. Are you familiar with that battle that he's mentioning?
Well, if I'm correct, I think that the Cubans under Fidel Castro were very instrumental in the overthrow of the Western governments in the Southern African region, including Angola's fight for independence. I know that there were some serious battles fought that brought down these Western-oriented governments. I am suspecting that the Battle of Vale that he is referring to is one of those that was won by the aid of the Cubans.
Okay. Give thanks. We have a very intelligent Lion Pride family, so we give thanks. So this is the community reasoning. You know, we are bringing the guests, but it's for all of us to sit and have high-level Rastafari Pan-African reasonings, and you can see we delivered that this evening. Bongo Wise is asking Brother Wadie, what is the ICE take on the operations of ECOWAS?
Well, give thanks, Brother Wisely, for the question. I think that, in terms of intention, ECOWAS is supposed to be a positive um, bloc, right? A bloc that encourages, for instance, trade among member countries, encourages movement for the people of those countries into, other countries, encourages social um, interactions among people of those countries. But what we see is that it has not necessarily lived up to that expectation. Um, Trade is still very minimal among African countries, even within the ECOWAS region. There are still um, colonially inspired systems operating that prevent, for instance, the free movement of people in these countries. So, ECOWAS, for instance, right now has a passport where if you are a citizen of ECOWAS, you're supposed to be able to use that passport to travel throughout anywhere in the region. But at the same time, we still hear of people getting to the borders, and there is not that free flow of people, of movement that citizens of these countries are supposed to have. So I think that ECOWAS needs to move away from being just a talk shop, a kind of idealistic bloc, similar to the African Union, right? Which at this stage is a disaster. But and become more of a practical bloc, which actually will work for the benefit of the people of these places at home and abroad.
On this platform, as the I know, because I support this platform, we look at the global chessboard. We're seeing the heavy involvement of the BRICS bloc on the continent. How do you see BRICS in terms of Africa's development and moving forward, as opposed to our traditional G7? Because this is the divide. And we're going to do an episode. Putin just came out. I don't know if I saw that, and say that Russia must prepare for war with NATO in the next 10 years, full-scale war. This thing is escalating serious, family.
True.
And Africa is the breadbasket for all of these countries. So we're going to see some intensification of people trying to secure their resource and their supply lines prior to this global war. But how does the IC BRICS in terms of Africa's development?
Well, I think that from where Africa stands, Africa has to see it as a position where it can leverage itself for what it wants, right? And by that I mean that for so long, Africa has just been the location that has been exploited by these so-called European powers and the United States, right? They just take the resources and give very, very little to African countries. Now, I think that BRICS has upset that balance, that imbalance, I should say, and is now providing an alternative to the G7 countries, and of course the G7 is not happy about that. But I think that Africa also should be wary and not just look at it from, well, just because the Western powers have exploited us for so long, we should allow ourselves to also be exploited by the BRICS countries, right? I think that we should. It's an opportunity for African countries to leverage and say, well, now that there is this opposing force to the G7, it gives me an opportunity to be able to demand the things that I want from either of these blocks, right? So, so long as we're looking at it from the point of view as it presenting an opportunity and not leaving ourselves open to exploitation from countries in the BRICS bloc as well, then we stand a chance to be able to use that as a leveraging point against the domination of the G7 bloc.
Okay. Couple more questions, and then we're gonna seal up. We're already at the 2 hour mark, family. We know these things fly. This is just part one. Johnny Johnson please ask Dr. Wadie what he thinks of the African Union entertaining Israel Zionist government observer status when 6 regions of African Union diaspora isn't fully operational. I want to tell you, I just be careful. We don't want the channel take it down as a supporter, but please just use your professor hat right now.
I'll try to be polite. Well, let me put it this way. So the African Union, right, initially in its inception was designed to be financed by the independent African states. Over the course of time, the financing of the African Union has come to be provided by these Western powers. And as Marcus Garvey said, in reference to the Negro, he said, the Negro who depends on the patronage of philanthropists is the most dangerous member of our society because he is willing to turn back the clock of progress when his benefactors ask him to do so. So if these benefactors are the ones financing the African Union, then they also have the power to control the African Union. So I believe that by saying that politely, answered your question, because I do want this platform to be here. Right? Yes.
We're wise, we're wise. We're not young. We balance the zeal with wise mind, knowledge, and understanding. So who have ears, let them hear.
True.
Who have eyes, let them see. We're building for the long term. I always recall my sister Fanai of Rastafari TV, always saying to we need our own servers. We need our own warehouses. We need, we can't depend on these platforms that we don't control. And that's part of the vision long term, is to really partner with other Rastafari independent media operations so that we can, own warehouses on the continent full of servers, and we are interacting on the World Wide Web on our sovereign Rastafari platform to say what we feel like,
True.
But we're not there, family. So we have to just balance everything that we say and know. I want to ask the final question. If you have any questions, put it in the chat. We're welcoming Professor Dr. Assistant Professor Dr. Kwadwo Oppong-Wadie. This is part one of many. You see, his queen has been on the platform not just one time or 2 times, but at least 3 times, and expect to see the same of this brethren, particularly when we talk about Ghana, West Africa, and we're going to be doing a lot more of that in the new year as repatriation heats up, as we accelerate, because I'm predicting that this next 4 years of Trump is going to accelerate the return to the continent. The diaspora, a lot more people are going to be visiting Africa. A lot more people are going to be moving there. There's going to be a lot with this global war unfolding, World War III, as I call it. As that ripens, you're going to have a lot more people moving. You're going to have a lot more activity taking place. So I definitely look forward to having the eye on to be our perspective, and I'm going to interview a lot of races underground in Ghana too. So the brethren will help us to get that macro from a Ghanaian looking outside, but we're also going to bring in our brethren and sisters who are races in Ghana who can tell you what it's like being on the ground. Because I have a brethren that just went to Ghana, and he went last year, and he said even the difference between last year and this year in Accra is like, he's wondering how the rate of development is so rapid. You know what I mean? So Accra is really the investment, the foreign capital is pouring in, and the place is transforming. All of the amenities, the clubs, the this, the that are popping up. The Cape Coast, the beach, real estate, the condos, the rooftop deck, the lounge, the this, the that we see happening in American cities. All of that is now popping up. The gated communities, the complexes, housing complexes, anything you can find in America, you're gonna see it now in Ghana. But the question I want to ask there to seal up this epic reasoning, we talked about BRICS. Let's drill down now. China, obviously China has played a massive role on African continent in terms of infrastructure development. They are a massive presence in Ghana. The Lebanese, of course, are very much there too. But the Chinese, how do you view the rise of China on Africa's development and on Ghana in particular?
Well, thank you for that question. I think that Ghana and China have always had a relationship, a good relationship, right? Even coming through the days of Aside for Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. But in contemporary times, I think that we have heard a lot of musings, particularly coming from the Western world, in terms of China's growing influence on the African continent in general. But I also think that one thing that stands as a threat to the Western influence in Africa being posed by China is the kind of relationship that China seems to be having with Africa. In other words, China comes to Africa and says, hey, we do need some, say, uranium, right? But at the same time, unlike what the Western governments do when they come and just give you like 7% or 10% or something like that of your resources, China embarks on infrastructure projects. They ask, what kinds of things do you need that we can offer you in exchange for the resource that we need? Now, having said that, I think that Africa should also be cautious of not substituting one colonial power for the other, right? It was Malcolm X who said that if somebody takes a knife and pushes it into your belly 12 inches deep and then pull it out 5 inches, it's still there, right? Even though the person has pulled it out 5 inches, the knife is still in your belly, right? So I'm saying that to say that, whereas China, of course, has been more progressive in terms of its relationship with African countries, in terms of the resources, we still have to operate from a position of independence and not just substituting the worst one for the better one, right? We have to look at a situation where we get the best out of whatever resources that Africa has. So yes, China has risen in terms of, we see this not only in Ghana, we see it in Ethiopia, right? We see it in Zambia. We see it all across Africa, and also even apart from that, their populations actually are also moving into these countries, right? So, for instance, when I was growing up, there were Chinese people in Ghana, for instance, but they were mostly working in like the textile industries. They were like the owners of these textile industries, and and similar industries. But now, when you go to Ghana, you see that even small businesses that was formerly the preserve of Ghanaian citizens, such as small shops selling shoes and stuff. The Chinese people are now doing the same thing. They're competing with the local entrepreneurs for that space, having the advantage of being able to bring those shoes and stuff wholesale from China into the country. So my point here being that yes, whereas the relationship with China is more beneficial in terms of what African countries get as compared to the Western countries. African countries should not fall into a trap of just going for it as just simply because it's better than what the Western world offers. And I saw somebody put a statement regarding abuses. Yes, Marcus Garvey did say that what the world respects is what when you have actualized self-determination, right? And then the rest who have not actualized self-determination will carry the burden. I think that is what the entire African world is experiencing right now. So it is high time to actualize that self-determination, to actualize the African unity that we talk about, and bring these things into fruition for the benefit of I people at home and abroad.
Give thanks, give thanks. This was a mighty reasoning. I've really enjoyed it. I was educated. We're gonna go through that Ghana timeline on another episode and go more deeper into the reigns of each of those administrations, because I'm very fascinated on the history, particularly as someone who's returning to live there, to get the eye perspective as a learned perspective. So I really do give thanks for the eye joining us and the Lion Pride here on the Lion Voice. Any final sounds? Also, let us know, is there any way that the Lion Pride can put money in your pocket if you have any product or service, anything that you want to share with the family that they can go and support that? Please give us your final sounds.
Well, give thanks to Just Much for having me to share a few words on this program. I think that I really want to encourage the subscribers to this channel to make it a point to contribute to the channel. I think that sometimes we may think that we are incapable, but we are actually capable. As I see in this time, I when I compare how we supported movements in the Black world, in the colonial times, in the civil rights time, Black people were supported in the times of Marcus Garvey. You see Black people really selling biscuits, selling pancakes, doing everything they could to support these movements. I think that we should have the same spirit in this time. I think that this channel is bringing us something that is very unique. Is bringing us a perspective that is essential to the Rastafari community and also to every person of African descent who is interested in the progress of African people. So I think if we are able to, as the Jasmine said, think of sacrificing the Starbucks coffee and, because Starbucks really does not act in our interest. They are not interested in our progress. So let's, make that sacrifice and put it somewhere that will be beneficial to us in the long run. I give thanks to your audience for their audience and having granted me this opportunity to share these words with you. In the future, if there's any product that I would like to share, I'll definitely make the eye known. But as you know already, my Empress has her book, which is going to be relaunched soon. So hopefully, when she does, it will be an opportunity to come back and share a little bit about that.
Definitely, and make sure you get the Empress Men and Chronicles. Google the Empress Men and Chronicles, and we can put a link in the description as well, so ones can purchase the first edition. Mighty Strength. They are coming forward, and you see he used his own time of his last words to big up the Lion Voice Network, which is a testament to the Virgin character. And the thing that made it so powerful is that the Virgin is part of the Lion Pride on Patreon. It's not a lip service. The Virgin and his family are already supporting the platform. And this goes to show you the caliber of people that we have supporting the platform as well. We can draw for them as guests because they come with the lived experience, but also the credential that makes them sought after, on any platform, Rastafari or non-Rastafari. So, this is a college professor that gave us, this information on Ghana, his homeland. So that's the level that we want to bring here on the Lion Voice. We do the grassroots, because it's not just the institution that makes you wise. So we do. And as I said that, I want to big up Mama Fire, who has been on the platform. I'm hearing that she's not well. We're going to have some information where ones can contribute to her care. I'm just trying to get some more information now, so we'll bring that forward, how ones can support. And if you haven't seen our Mama Fire interview, when you go to the Lion Voice on YouTube, you can go to the menu and you hit the live tab. That's how you see all of our past live episodes. They won't show up in your feed, so you have to go to the tab, scroll to live, click live, and all of the live episodes, the full episodes are there. You can watch them. Go watch Mama Fire, legendary Nyabingi matriarch, related to Solomon Wolf of the EWF. So we're going to, again, bring some information. She have a medical crisis happening right now, so we'll bring some information how the family can help out that situation. We're going to be doing some other charitable works as we seal up. So when you support the platform as well, remember, as we become more powerful, we'll be able to support our community, because this is by the community, but we're going to reinvest in our community, because that's what we do anyway. We live this. So the support that the item give empowers I sponsor events, help elders in need, invest in infrastructure specific to Rastafari, and things of that nature. So once we stabilize the platform, we're going to be doing a lot of work in the community, because that's where our content comes from. So naturally, we would invest in the community that provides our content. So it's very important, family. This is not an individual uprising. Yes, I will benefit, and I know that hurts some people's feelings, but I'm doing the work. So we must get some benefit from it. The sacrifice, the editing, the hours, the interviews. I had a big interview today that we're going to be dropping on the network soon. When you don't see I'm still working on the platform. So join us. This is going to be an epic, compelling saga. Can I reach 100 patrons in the next 2 strong? This is drama filled. The Lion Pride, the item are going to decide the outcome. We're going to be pressing gas. I have a whole heap of content pre-recorded to release. Some big interviews, as we say, and some different. We're going to different regions and getting different voices. So support the Patreon, support the platform. You can become an Ubuntu Lion Pride, which is anything over $50 gets you onto the Ubuntu. That is going to go up January 1st. That's going to become $70 January 1st. And the Ubuntu is a great value for families. You can show your support as a family, as a small business. It's a one-time cost. That is going to continue to go up as the channel grows. So now is the perfect time. $50. It's never going to be $50 again. The item can become a part of Rastafari history. For the Lion Python Patreon, the people who are part of our Patreon, when we hit 100, we're going to be building a physical studio in Ghana, and we're going to have some type of memorial wall or commemorative wall, and our first 100 people in the Patreon will their names will be emboldened on that wall. So you can become a part of the history, and trust me, this thing is going to be massive, bigger than most people can imagine, because we visualize it. I'm in the industry, we know what I do. We're taking our time methodically, rolling out different aspects as we go along, and this is an opportunity for families, for businesses, get on at the early stage so that you too can share. Because I hold that Rastafari, we haven't tapped the power of Kadamawi Haile Selassie globally. We haven't even scratched the surface. Yes, we think he's mighty. Yes, he's almighty. We hail him. But having traveled and having known and seen what I see, trust me, I know the power. You know, I've been to a rural village in Ghana and see little youths come out and say, Ja, Rastafari, and I mean, in 2005, when internet was not all over Ghana, you know what I mean? So I know the power. So you can imagine if we are producing our own content, top tier content, and broadcasting. Right now, Africa is my fastest growing market. Kenya, Libya, Ghana, Uganda, South Africa, Tanzania. These are some of my fastest growing markets. So Africans are tuned in with, and they may not be able to support the Patreon because of their situation, but their action lion pride, they're sharing, they're liking, they're commenting. So this thing is going to be massive. We're talking 1.5 billion people on the African continent. I mean, they love Rastafari, the whole of them. You know what I mean? Or most of them. Let me say most of them, and not being extremists. So it's going to be massive. So join us, family, early. We're giving our family a chance to join us. I'm not going to stop. Dr. Kojo is not going to stop. His queen, Mama Santua, is not going to stop. Why? Because the time has come for the lions to tell our own story. And this is the lion's voice. Rastafari.
Rastafari. Celestia. Yeah. Rastafari. Come on.
America over English. Real Ethiopian, me na British, go tell them. Grrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr America is my preference. When my heights and my black my reverence. Aber touch no e besse man ye yem nor se mi yike des men gesteht im da bevor besse man ye in de one chindi u dem dear ti hun ye let in jara chinin satin zare kai mok is sat it at lion voice one voice and the lion voice time for the lion and the lioness voices to be heard. Log in and don't log off. Lion voice crazy one lion voice I it.
Of the fittest shall survive. My people, open your eyes. Wake up. Blessed love, this is Queen Omega representing for all lions and lionesses. With the lion's voice, we come to tell our story. Rastafari live it. Hey, the lion's voice. Rastafari.
Greetings, this is Warrior King, and the time has come for the lions and the lioness to tell their own story. This is the lion's voice. Give thanks and praise for the wonderful blessing that's been poured on me. Give thanks and praise. Jah use yet an instrument to set the people free. Jah give her the powers to chant. Jah give her the powers to chant. Rastafari, the lion's voice.
Amina, the time has come for the lioness to tell our own story. No surrender, no retreat, we are Jaja soldier. Rougher than the streets, tougher than a boulder. Bigging up Lamb's voice. Now put it. I Jolly for said that.
This is Sangy Davis. It's time for the lion to Ika. For unity is strength. Let us come together, my brethren and sisters, and forward to the motherland. Enough love. This is the lion's voice. Ja Rastafari.
Debbie, and I'm speaking to you straight from the Kwadwo Oppong-Wadie Studios at Sassy Radio. I'm a producer, and you know what time it is? It is time for the lion to tell a story. Tune in and don't go anywhere.
Beautiful.
Was it okay?
Kaboom! My name is King Legacy, the 7-star general, the host of Yard Settings on Sassy Radio, an award winner as well, and MC for Legacy Sound International. Ladies and gentlemen, kings and queens, tune into the lion voice, because time to tell our own story. So are you me, man? The lion coming on and boom and tell its own story. Africa and the world. Tune in, lion voice.
I'm Nana Farika. The time has come for the lioness to tell her story from her viewpoint and tell the world who Queen Omega is. This is the lion's voice.
Well, lion voice, tell them that's the people first choice. Lion voice, make the lioness them feel nice. Lion voice, with the lion cubs we sacrifice. Lion voice, got to show the people them the life. Lion voice.